Thank you so much for joining us today for the webinar, Paying It Forward in the Maritime Industry, Leadership, Sustainability, and the Human Element. And thank you everyone who's joined us. We'll give it a minute and then we'll start our webinar today. Also, just for everyone's information, the webinar will be auto recorded. So if in case you are interested in the webinar, this video will be available on our YouTube platform. Thank you.
That's excellent, Disha. Then we have one or two people who've decided to join
I
us. That's fantastic.
I think we've got 30 people here who've joined us. So do you think we should give it a start?
Let's go ahead. Yeah.
Perfect. All right. So a little bit about the introduction of the webinar. The maritime industry, is often viewed through the lens of operations, logistics, technology, and global trade. However, behind every vessel, there is a successful team of people who are working highly effectively and are working in isolated and demanding high pressure environments. So this webinar today aims to explore this side of human side of the maritime life, the realities of working at sea, the psychological and the emotional challenges faced by seafarers, and the role of leadership in building resilient and sustainable maritime communities. Drawing from Gordon Foote's extensive experience in submarine leadership roles, charity initiatives, and enduring challenges, and professional development through the MBA program that he has done with us at MLA College. This session will focus on resilience, well being, leadership under pressure, and the importance of supporting the human element within the maritime industry. The discussion will then explore how continuous learning and professional education contribute to leadership growth, and long term impact within the sector. Now, I would take the honor to introduce our speaker, Mr. Gordon Foote. I'm sure everyone knows him, but for people who don't, today he has joined us. He's a highly respected maritime professional whose career truly reflects the spirit of paying it forward within the maritime industry. And I don't think there is a better guest for us to have. With over 35 years of experience within the maritime sector, Gordon has built an exceptional career grounded not only in operational excellence but also in leadership, mentorship, and people's development. What makes Gordon's journey exceptionally inspiring is his support and always paying it to the maritime professionals and giving it back to the industry that has shaped life of many. Thank you so much, Gordon, for joining us today.
Well, thank you, Disha. What a fantastic welcome. And thank you to all the viewers and listeners that have taken their time out today to join us. It sounds like Disha has just created a whole web of different subjects that we can discuss. But yeah, as like a fireside chat, we'll try and get through as many of those topics as we can. And like Disha said,
Absolutely.
it's being human centric. It's about the people, and I'm one of those guys that just happens to be all about the people. I've been in the maritime 4 decades now, and you know what you find when you're out there in the front line is it is all about the people, and that's what makes your day. So yeah, and special people join us today are all the women and ladies because today is the IMO's accredited day for the International Day for Women in Maritime, which is fantastic. So across social media there'll be lots of posts about that, and a lot of men ask me how come the women get a special day. So I'm just going to run that one by you. They do because I think the statistics still show that there's less than 2% of women in the maritime serving at sea. I think it only gets up to about 4% if you include onshore support and logistics. So if we're to be stronger together, if we are to harmonize and bring the maritime into the 21st century, like other industries and other disciplines and practices on land, then we should consider that there is quite a deficit of women in the maritime, and why should that be? So today, I think is a good platform to have that narrative and to continue that conversation about inclusion, about equity, and about all how we can all assist that. So all the men out there, I say, be an ally. Think about allyship, what that means, and be there for everyone, whatever gender, and together we can be stronger. So thanks for that. I don't know where we should kick off then. Introducing myself like Disha did, I think we've covered most of it. But yeah, being in the maritime, I've had a bit of a different career, shall we say. So I started as a young boy thinking about what I wanted to do in the future, and I came across the Maritime on a holiday where I was looking at big grey ships on the south coast of England, which happened to be warships in the Royal Navy. So I thought about where these ships went and what they did. Being that young, I didn't know what conflict or war was, but I understood that they went to a lot of different countries and sailed around the world. And also part of their job was hurricane and disaster. Excuse me. Hurricane and disaster relief, and giving aid to people as well. So it's not just using the guns; it's using the reach and the capability of a maritime nation like that to assist other countries and other people. And yeah, I'd left school and ended up joining the Royal Navy. So that's where Disha mentioned I spent the best part of 20 years in submarines, which again, as an engineer, is a bit of a different lifestyle. But I chose that because I chose the challenge. I have a passion for the maritime, and I think, to have purpose in life, there should be a challenge. If it was easier, we're all couch potatoes or we all sat in front of the TV or something, I don't think I would enjoy that life. I enjoy a challenge. So I went out there, found that challenge, and was in some very experienced and highly capable teams with the Royal Navy. And after I retired from there, I joined the Merchant Navy. And instead of doing boxes, banana boats, or containers, or bulk carriers, or cruise line, I decided to use my engineering skills in the critical infrastructure projects. So that's maritime construction. So I worked throughout oil and gas and a variety of different projects, shallow water, deep water, and also renewables. So the UK's coast is pretty much now surrounded by these offshore wind farms, which are bringing renewable energy. So yeah, all about sustainability, and of course the United Nations 17 Sustainable Development Goals, which encompass quite a few of those with renewable energy. And of course, I also are involved in a lot of other projects that are involved with subsea construction. So that could be telecoms cables, power cables, interconnectors linking up different countries as well. So quite an exciting life. I've enjoyed it and I still have a passion for it. But of course, everyone's journey in the maritime is not always so smooth. Or not always sounding so illustrious. And some people have a hard time working out who they are and what their journey is. So all I'd say is everybody's journey is different. I do fully appreciate the difference that some people's journey is within the maritime. Some of it's good, some of it's not so good. Um, but also, I always believe that it's what you make of it. So you have to be motivated to do it. You have to realize the sacrifices that it undertakes having a maritime career, and build yourself around that in whatever career or discipline you are, whether it's a navigation officer or in the engineering or the ETO or the offshore project side with a methods engineer or a crane driver, whatever it is. um, yeah, you should have a passion for it, because if you're going to do that as a career for the better part of your working life, it's always lovely to do something that you like doing. And I love the maritime and love doing my job.
Thank you so much, Gordon, for, first of all, congratulating everyone who is attending an international, Women's Day from IMO. And, as I said, you've got an extensive experience. You've been working in the merchant navy, then you're working in the submarine sector. So, from your experience overall, I would like to know, how does, the life look? Apart from, like, people, they do see the real time challenges, but when you're so isolated and you've got long voyages, how does the life really look like there, and how as people we can make it better?
Yeah, you keep mentioning I've got lots of experience. I think that's the polite way of saying I've got grey hair, or at least I've got hair. But I'm still smiling. So that's the thing. And on your journey in the maritime or whatever career you take, if you are enjoying it, you have a happy life doing what you love doing. So the sacrifices and what it is, as has been noted, I think if you look at it at a land job, you commute to work, you do a job from a certain hours from the morning to the afternoon, and then you go home. So every night you're at home with your family. Most employment maybe it doesn't involve working on a Saturday or Sunday or whatever the weekend is in your culture. So you have rest days and that. And that's something to consider, because when you're at sea, you don't get to go home each day. You do one commute when you join the ship and then the commute back. That may be by train, planes and automobiles, or flying to a ship in a different nation, joining that ship and then doing a passage or a transit. And it could be for weeks, it could be months, on end. I do have a privileged life because I'm working in the offshore industry. Most of our rotations are 4 or 6 weeks, um, rotating continuously. But then it is a high risk environment where we can't afford for fatigue. So the safety culture is a lot different. Whereas those that are navigating a bulk carrier or a container ship may well be going for months, some considerable months at a time. And although you'll have breaks when you visit other countries, the shore time is quite limited now with the modern technology. So a lot of the disembarking and embarking cargo and the logistics that surround that and the modern crane systems means that the time ashore is very limited or due to the time that the vessel is in a port is quite limited now. So there are those differences. But I think the main concept of being at work with others in what is really a remote way of working is that
Mm-hmm.
you're not doing it day by day and then having the weekends off. You're not being there for people's
Right.
birthdays or unfortunately bereavements with funerals. You're not there for public holidays or national holidays that you have. You're on a ship and you'll do a contract and you'll be there for the duration. So anyone considering the maritime has to
Mm-hmm.
overcome that concept of the being away from loved ones and the family. How you deal with that, what things that you do to compensate for that is entirely down to you, and it is very much an individual thing.
Mm-hmm.
When I was operating on submarines, there was zero communication. So we set our lives up, that's myself and my loved ones, then
Mm-hmm.
to understand that process so that if something went wrong while I was away, my wife or my loved ones and that could deal with whatever needed doing. Um,
Mm-hmm.
it's different now with modern technology and being in ships that we can FaceTime, we can WhatsApp, voice and video, and it's instantaneous and it costs us nothing on the Wi-Fi. And you know, over the years now, the communication systems are better, and even at sea, which was always dragging a decade behind land, has what is now pretty much a broadband system that can enable communications throughout your day. So communications with your loved ones is through digital means.
Mm-hmm.
It won't be the personal means. So I think people have to think about entering the maritime, and that career is going to mean that it's going to take you away physically from your loved ones, and uh, everyone then has to get used to the digital means of communication and keeping in touch with each other. Apart from that, it's
Right.
just a matter of the working in a remote
Mm-hmm.
environment. So although you have teammates and you'll have a crew with you. Some of those crews can be relatively small. Maybe there's 10 or 12 people on the
Right.
construction vessels I go on, especially some of the larger ones. You know, you'll have
Mm-hmm.
100 people, but at the end of the day, they're not your loved ones or your family, although you might like one or two of them. So yeah, again, it's how to day in, day out, even when
Mm-hmm.
it's a weekend or other people are on holiday,
Mm-hmm.
to be able to operate at a high professional standard in
Mm-hmm.
close proximity with just the few people that are there with you. But of course, the sea surrounds you, so you are
Mm-hmm.
remote from everything else. So if you get
Right.
upset or you don't like somebody, you can't go down the pub for a drink, or you can't think, oh, I'll have a break this weekend, I'll go to the movies. That doesn't happen. You have to find
Right.
your own entertainment, your own way of uh, the sacrifice that it is that's being away from loved ones and family, and more
Mm-hmm.
importantly, how to get on with your shipmates there and have a good time while you are at work. Because, like I said at the beginning, if you have a passion for your job and it's an interesting job and you love your job, you've got to have a passion for the people that are there as well.
And you briefly covered that these prolonged voyages and time away from family do affect mental health. And I absolutely, I do consider that, of course, communication is still something that can be taken care of with broadband available on ships. And I remember we also did a video call session to discuss the webinar, and you showed me the ship, so that was amazing, right? But the mental health, do you think still it is considered, or do you think it's an under discussed topic within this industry still?
I think, unfortunately, it took a pandemic and something like COVID for people to actually
Mm-hmm.
come to terms with what they believed on land or in their land jobs, what they thought was restrictive to them. And having a
Mm-hmm.
lockdown or being told to stay indoors and have limited physical contact with loved ones or other people. And I know all
Right.
nations were different, but it was the case that some were unable to attend funerals or couldn't go to a senior or um, an older person's residence and that. So
Mm-hmm.
that became a bit of a discussion. But what those that work on land fail to realize is that pretty much the seafarers are doing that all the time. They
Mm-hmm.
are
Mm-hmm.
have their set surroundings, which is the ship, and they will then live and work in that ship for weeks or months on end.
Right.
And as most humans found it difficult, even whether it was in a hotel room or even your own apartment, to stay indoors
Mm-hmm.
for 1 or 2 weeks, you imagine what that is like then for a seafarer whose choice it is to work at sea, but is in that same environment for weeks or months on end. And it does take some adjustment. So for most people that work on land that suddenly had to do that, they're like, oh my God, this is so different. I can't deal with it. I don't know when I should be sleeping, when I should be waking up. You'll find that the maritime is very much clued up to that, in so much as that we have set meal times, we have set watches. So there is a routine that flows all the time, whether it's your working hours, your resting hours, or when you have your meals. Um, but outside of that, there's obviously trying to understand your own entertainment and how you interact with other people. So yeah, you have a job to do and you do those working hours. So what do you do when you
Mm-hmm.
rest? Most of it is obviously catching up with sleep, trying not to get fatigued. But there's many things that you can do, and I chose to embrace lifelong learning and continuous professional development, and that's one element that you can do. So a lot of people, even during the pandemic and the lockdowns, thought, "Oh yeah, I can do distance learning. I can do a training course. I can catch up on training." And of course, if you find that as beneficial to you and your career, if it's maybe something of interest, like another language, all those things are possible now at sea. And the MLA College uh, creates that environment where you can then do higher education and extended learning, or like I've been doing recently, the bite-sized courses on the UN's SDGs. So that's interesting as well. And it's something that passes the time. It provides you
Mm-hmm.
with learning and education. Um, yeah, so sometimes it's can be different than just sticking with Netflix or streaming movies or a hard
Absolutely.
drive that you've got movies. Yeah, it's something alternate. So it's helping mental health and awareness at the end of the day. So you know, it's just the diet that you eat, um, the exercise that you take. So a lot of ships have a gymnasium, and if they don't have a purpose-built one, you can overcome that with lifting weights, doing exercises, just going for a walk, using your digital watches to see how many steps you've got in a day. Everybody does that. Um, yeah, so I think if you're thinking about mental health and the awareness about that, that the maritime is very synced into that. Those that
Mm-hmm.
work on land were not at all. So there has been a big conversation about that. But of course, it's
Right.
the experience of when you're at sea. So it's okay saying, oh, you have movies, there's a gymnasium, we can do this, we can do that, we can educate ourselves during our spare time as well. So there's lots of things you can do that helps with that resilience. And
Right.
because the communication is better, it assists with,
Mm-hmm.
possible loneliness as well.
Yeah. Thank you so much for covering different things that people can occupy their time with, especially learning and maybe going after a course that you want, or just exercising regularly. So thank you so much for covering that. And for people who are looking for some sort of insights from people who have already done that, I think this is the right platform for that. And especially MLA College, because our aim is to make learning accessible. So this is specifically aimed for people who are seafarers and who are um, with these stringent voyages, and they cannot stick to a particular time, so they can do it anytime, anywhere. They've got their own pace that they can study, right? So thank you so much for covering that. I just also want to ask, as an organization, I understand employees, people can they undertake these sort of challenges to keep themselves motivated, but as an organization, to create a healthier and more supportive work environment, what do you think organizations should do for people?
There's a corporate way of doing things like
Mm-hmm.
training or learning,
Right.
ensuring that the work-life balance is met and that the
Mm-hmm.
fatigue isn't there on the ship. That's easier said than done in a lot of cases because there's a lot of external pressures from a corporate side,
Hmm.
whether it's the charter, the owner, the owners of the cargo, the flag state. There's much to do with keeping a vessel safe and
Hmm.
earning the client money, I suppose. But when it comes to the human-centric side, I think it's kind leadership is one term that I use. Treating people with respect. They're not robots. They don't need 50 emails a day when they have a job to do as well. There are not PAs or secretaries or people dealing with this administration. It is all the ship's crew that are dealing with that as well. So I think for
Hmm.
those on land, considering how we can better affect a better work-life balance on board, it's not just sending an app about how to do yoga.
Right.
Some of those apps are good, some of them not so good. So if you have an app and you've used professionally trained people that are qualified to uh, build content for an app like that, then that's quite
Hmm.
good. Otherwise, it gets perceived as just the company telling you what to do if it's a company-driven thing. So I think there's a fine line to be drawn between those sort of self-help apps that are professionally made
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
have a place in the market, as opposed to a knee-jerk reaction. Let's just do this little cartoon skit and send it to somebody, and it ticks a box somewhere. Oh, we've helped the crew.
Hmm.
That doesn't work
Right.
so well.
So
Um,
individual challenges alongside, companies providing the platform to for people to undertake these challenges. I think combination of both can work for people, right?
yeah, that's it.
Hmm.
Because some people need assistance, should we say, or
Right.
can benefit from some
Hmm.
education about process, how to be resilient, what resilience is, how you can look after yourself better. So yeah, we don't all know everything, and we don't need to go
Hmm.
to YouTube to find out what life is
Absolutely.
about. But there's
Hmm.
one or two that might need some assistance, and some of it is just like getting a digital watch and see how many paces you're doing. So many
Hmm.
people use those now in the maritime, and
Hmm.
it's really good because rather than sitting in the chair or looking out the window, which you should be anyway, if you're on watch on the bridge, for instance, but
Hmm.
you know, on long passages and that you can have an isolated life and one
Hmm.
which could be deemed a lot of sitting down. So get up, move around, do exercise. All that
Hmm.
aids towards your mental health and well-being. So it
Amazing.
shouldn't all be company driven. We all have a responsibility in
Hmm.
ourselves to look after ourselves. And for the most part,
100%.
I would imagine that most of us do know that to keep a good circulation, a good heart rate, eat well, exercise wherever you can, and get the
Hmm.
right amount and recommended sleep pattern rolling. So yeah, even if you're on short shifts or even on shifts that take you on a night shift through
Hmm.
most of your waking hours where it's dark and you're under UV lighting or false lighting and instead of sunlight, then there are still methods and means of gaining that extra sunlight and a better balance in the way you go about your job for sure. Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for covering that. I do see people are also engaging. So thanks to everyone who's posting questions. I've got a question from Khadija Afzal. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. So the question is why communication is important in the maritime industry, how leadership improve environmental protection, how leaders encourage environmental friendly behavior.
Oh, there's quite a bit of environmental there as well, but it
Yeah.
started off with communication.
Communication.
How to communicate? I think we as humans, English is the maritime language, and I'm fortunate to be a native English speaker. But
Hmm.
irrespective of your technical knowledge or your use of English, I think within the maritime, we all communicate quite well. A lot of it can be over radios as well, which is not face to face. So you lose a bit of the context or the rhythm that you would have if you were face to face with somebody, knowing how they react to a question or whatever. But that's why we use radios or we use communications through systems like that because we're talking briefly in shortened English without a wide, extensive range of grammar. So everyone should be able to communicate quite well. I think what we tend to lack sometimes is a bit of empathy or a bit of respect in our communications. And I work on ships so where there can be 25 different nationalities. So telling someone to do something and asking them to do something, there is a difference and there can be a middle ground. And I think if you do respect the person, and I know we have a hierarchical sort of ranking system in the maritime, even on the project side where somebody is a senior, somebody might be junior to them. But I'd like to think if you consider kind leadership and those that are in leadership positions thinking more like that and using emotional intelligence and respecting the person within the workplace, then I think that has a massive benefit for a safety culture because people are more likely to respond positively. They're more likely to actually reciprocate. They're more likely to say, "Oh yeah, I was going to do that, but have you seen this? This is in the way," or somebody's put some stores there and that, by that fire exit door. The communication flows better, and people are more open about their work
Hmm.
environment and the way they go about their daily business. And for me, it's a safety culture that
Hmm.
that is really benefiting from that. Not least our soul interactions with our teammates, which makes it a much better place to live. We were talking about the environmental side. Now that depends about what we're doing. We obviously don't belong on the oceans, nor do our ships or the fuels in them. So, as with most nations that are, shall we say, mature in the HSE or the safety that they conduct within their operations, then the E in HSE does stand for environment. So it is just as important as the health and the safety side. And we will, and most ships are compliant with the higher safety standards and respect the environment that we're working in because we are floating along on somebody else's ecosystem. So, with regards being compliant to MARPOL and what goes into the ocean and what should never go into the ocean, I'm very hot on that. Some years ago, I set up and was working with um, the ocean cleanup, and I went out to the mid-Pacific, to the Great Pacific Garbage Patch, where we were removing plastics from the ocean. So it is a shame that the human aspect of how we treat our rivers and waterways means that a lot of garbage goes in to the ocean, and then a charitable organization like that on a large scale, like a great many other environmental projects, are trying to clean up our rivers, waterways, and specifically our seas and oceans. But yeah, all the flag states are liable to be compliant with MARPOL. So every ship that's out there understands the processes and the methodology and how they handle their waste, whether it's from the crew and waste segregation, but also the handling of waste products from the humans being there. That includes obviously food items and that, but also um, items that are surplus to requirements like old engine oil, and so forth. So it can be liquids, chemicals, and food, and all that is waste products, and how we handle that waste is most important. And yeah, none of it goes over the side anymore. It's a shame to say that in generations gone past and decades gone past, that was the case, but we have now learnt by those errors, and there are lots of rules and regulations applying to that. So yeah, the environment, we hope to just
Hmm.
pass through that environment and leave nothing behind but our wake.
Right. And I believe our everyday actions, impact so much in the environment. And we often think very late in our journey that sustainability is also something that should be kept in mind. And me personally, I never realized the kind of impact we do, have in our day-to-day life. So I've taken up this module provided by MLA College, of course, on sustainability and how our day-to-day life actually impacts environment and how we can undertake challenges that can help that. So if people who are interested in sustainability, they can definitely sign up for these unitar affiliated courses that are provided by us. It's bite-sized learning, and I think it will keep you
Hmm.
like company when you are free and you want to undertake something. So Gordon, I think you've spoken extensively about kind leadership, and I know I've been following your journey for quite some time now on LinkedIn, and I have seen that you've undertaken a lot of challenges like climbing Mount Kilimanjaro and Nordic Challenge. So, what motivated you personally to take these initiatives, and if you can shed more light on that?
Well, I've been doing silly stuff like that for a couple of decades, I suppose. Even from my time in the Royal Navy, I used to be assistant
Hmm.
teacher. So those that didn't do so well at school but had managed to enter the Navy, trying to get some higher education or improve their educational status was one way. And because it's a hierarchical system, your educational status was usually linked to your rank or promotion or how you progressed in your career. So that was one way of paying it forward or helping others. Um, in the UK, we do fun runs, usually 10-kilometer or half marathons. Usually they're linked to raising some funds for some charities. So I used to do that as well. And I think more recently, people on LinkedIn, and this is the main thing. Back in the day, then we didn't have, well, the internet was in its infancy, but we didn't have social media, which is part of everybody's life now. Only a decade ago, that it was not as prolific as it is now. And what I found was that rather than just localized friends, family, or the submarine or the ship that I was working on, that the social media obviously provided a much wider audience and an international audience to what I was doing. So when I chose to promote fundraising, if you like, or paying it forward or giving back to the maritime industry in the form of raising money for maritime charities, I was very selective in who I wanted to support. So I looked at charities that were assisting women in maritime. Were looking at issues like harassment, bullying, assault, sexual assault, how the support services for that were run, and how I could better help them. Also, the Sailor Society, which I help as well, is another small charity which has an international reach. But I like them because instead of um, spending the money on lunches in London or great big massive buildings. They actually were one of the first charities to move into the digital age and was providing digital services to seafarers all over the world at a much less cost than what it would be to send humans there and that. So whereas during COVID everyone thought, oh, Zoom, Teams and things like that is the way to communicate, I think the sailor societies were doing that and reaching out in a welfare means to seafarers all around the globe, and I found that interesting and a good use of resources. So I opted to help them. And I set off with always a story to tell. So although I'd been in submarines and in the offshore industry working subsea with remotely operated vehicles and predominantly beneath the waves and under the water, I thought, having spent most of my life either at depth, if you like, and being deep down and submerged, I would go for height. So I picked a mountain. And being of extended years in age that I am, because I am not a teenager anymore, I didn't think I'd ever get to Everest. So, having worked predominantly on the African continent, I thought it was a good way of shining a light on the fantastic African nations and to do Mount Kilimanjaro in Tanzania. Yeah, and from that really, I gained a big support network, especially across LinkedIn, the social media that I prefer, and a lot of people were happy to donate and support a cause like that. So it raised, a considerable amount of money for an old guy like me climbing a mountain, and it was a physical challenge for me, but I think the ability that I had of within my inspiring the maritime posts that I do on LinkedIn meant that there was a narrative always there, and I could tell a story, and I could tell lots of stories and about those that have inspired me and organizations currently that are inspiring other people as well. So it was a good way to advertise people and companies that are inspiring
Mhm.
people in the maritime, whilst raising a lot of
Right.
money. And of course, I helped other charities then that for seafarers or the maritime or work alongside them. So it was cancer research and Alzheimer's disease. I did a skydiving. Last year I did Costa Rica, which was human powered. So again, that was a story behind
Mhm.
that about the sustainability and being human powered. So whereas in my life as a seafarer, I've been powered by jet boats, by sail, by nuclear power in
Mhm.
submarines, and by diesel and electric. I thought, what about human power? So I
Right.
trekked, mountain biked, whitewater raft, and kayaked from the Pacific Ocean on one side of Costa Rica across the whole nation, across the continental divide, up over the mountains and through the rivers to the Caribbean Sea on the other side of Costa Rica, and that gained a good following again, and
Mhm.
raises a considerable amount of money for maritime charities. Um, yeah, and this year I've decided to help those of the Queen Victoria Seafarers Rest, which is for homeless seafarers, veterans, and others. And I
Mhm.
thought about homelessness and how we all enjoy a roof over our heads and 3 square meals a day, which all seafarers will because they're on a ship with a roof over their head and 3 square meals a day. But not everyone has that luxury.
And afford that.
So
Yeah.
I was thinking, how can I bring a story to that? So I decided
Mhm.
that I would trek within the Arctic Circle from Sweden to Norway, but I would be
Mhm.
doing it from mountain hut to mountain hut. So each day it's like a journey that I'll take, looking for that shelter, that respite, and the comfort that having a roof over my head would give me, rather than be left out on the
Mhm.
mountain or the tundra. Um,
Mhm.
I don't need to do it with a sledge or husky dogs because I'm doing it in August, but it will still be through the mountain passes in the tundra, and an 8 day challenge then going from one country to another in the wilderness. But yeah, highlighting homelessness, and I've done well again, and some fantastic people across the maritime community have been kind enough to donate just the price of a coffee. And all those
Right.
cups of tea or coffee soon mount up. So we've
Yeah.
done really well.
Yeah.
So I do thank the maritime community for their
Absolutely.
engagement with the crazy stuff that I do. Yeah, and I think for most
Absolutely.
people they just say, "Oh, Gordon, he's that nutter that does those crazy things and that." But at the end of the day, it's never about me. It's about highlighting those specific charitable organisations, the
Mhm.
fantastic people that work for them, and of course, the whole maritime community that actually
Right.
assists with the fundraiser.
Absolutely. And I do remember, I recollect from our previous conversation how I was genuinely inspired from the journey that you've had and how you were talking about, like, doing a small run, contributing an amount of a coffee, do, something at an individual level and undertake something that you feel personally for. So, a question that comes to my mind is like, do you think mentorship and supporting the next generation is important within the maritime sector? And also, if that's a yes, then how people should contribute at an individual level and how do they start?
Mentoring, that's always a yes, because that's another form of giving back or paying it forward. You're
Yeah.
helping somebody else's journey, somebody else's career, and it might be that they're a graduate, or maybe they're not at university, but they want to move into the junior levels of the maritime. How can they do that? And I remember when I was young, and I had people that I looked up to, or people that would mentor me, and they were always going to be initially, of course, family members. But once you were enter the world of work, actually getting there is hard enough. So if you're coming from school or university and you don't know, or you're wary of how that world of work is going to look like, because you've never stepped into it before, you might have some references made by your own parents or siblings that are in work and that, but of course you've never been there yourself. So it makes for a hard transition. So one way I do this is to help out with the MLA College, the University of Plymouth, Plymouth YMCA, a variety of different young adults, all with their own challenges, all with their own different career paths. But if they wish to make something in the world of work, then having somebody from industry discuss it with them and gives them some pointers. And it's not necessarily having to write a CV, because most people would have done that through school, or they have friends that can help, or their parents. But sometimes it's just explaining a little bit about what the world of work might be like, what the expectations might be like. Try and take out some of the fear and try and add some of the passion. I'm a guy that's always like the glass half full. I'm always sort of positive about these things, but of course, it is a scary time for people. No less than like taking a driving lesson. You know, you do all the work up to it, you do all the tests and things, but you've still got to pass that exam in the end. So entering the world of work, especially if it's going to be remote and related to the maritime, for instance, can be even harder. So in that way, I facilitate younger people or those junior in career to visit maritime establishments, harbours, ports, those that are working with autonomy or mass and things like that. Um,
Mm-hmm.
even ship visits. I live in an area
Yeah.
which has a port and a harbour, so we can go and see a
Mm-hmm.
ship. And if it's a female, I love it because if there's other females on that vessel, then they can talk about, the simple things like day to day living in
Absolutely.
close proximity with people. Where do you take your
Mm-hmm.
shower? How many toilets are there on the deck? Do you have to go somewhere special? Do you have to take off your PPE to go somewhere in the ship? All those sort of etiquette or things that they don't teach you at school. So it's a
Mm-hmm.
great conversation to have. Of course, there's building the network. There's thinking of higher education, thinking about professional qualifications, thinking about the
Mm-hmm.
continuation of professional development and lifelong learning. Having all those sort of discussions are brilliant, and I love doing that.
Amazing. You
And
know,
how can you do it? How can you do it? You can do it informally or formally. So I do it formally with
mhm,
organizations like yourselves, but also informally, I have people on social media saying, "Oh, I'm thinking of this career, or I want to do this change, or I don't like what I'm doing now. How can I requalify to do something else?" So sometimes it's about transition. Sometimes it's real because it's moving from a ship to a shore role.
sure,
Sometimes
yeah.
it's they don't particularly or have an extra interest about something else at sea on a ship. So I
Mhm.
support them doing that. So that's quite informal, and it might be just a WhatsApp call or just a chat on LinkedIn or something like that once a month. But it's helping people understand where their journey is at the moment, and if they wish to change it, how they can go about that, and some of the easy ways to do that.
Thank you so much for, giving us insights as to what people can do, and, how you have given back to the society and how you have mentored people. I think everyone should definitely take up some sort of challenge, whatever resonates with them, and try and contribute in their own capacity to that. We
And the
formally.
the thing that the thing
Mhm,
that I always say about it is that, and why it's never about me, is because somebody says, "Oh, you climbed a mountain," and all that. I said, "Well, firstly, it's
mhm,
not about
mhm.
me. It's always about the charity and the seafarers' welfare, and actually
Right.
giving something back. But
Mhm.
secondly, you can do this in your life as well if I've inspired you, and you
Absolutely.
don't have to climb a mountain to do it. Everyone has challenges, and some of them can seem like a great big mountain in life.
Mhm.
But what I teach people, especially lots and lots of them that direct message me and say, "Oh, it's so fantastic you climbed a mountain. I've got this in my life or this challenge." Sometimes it's just a calming talk and say, "We can all climb that mountain. We just have to learn to do it one step at a time."
At a time.
Don't bite off more than you can chew. Don't think, "Oh, I'm going to climb that
Mhm.
mountain tomorrow because Gordon did it because he's a mad bugger." No, think
Right.
about what the challenge is in your life, and is it if it's to get the
Mhm.
next qualification or to
Mhm.
secure a better job or to do more for your family.
Right.
We can all do that, but we just need to take it one step at a time. Think about what the
Absolutely.
small challenge will be. Get that challenge done. Feel good about having done that, and then move on to the next one.
Right. And I do remember from our previous conversation that you also covered that, just baking a cake, possibly getting people together, doing a small run, anything of these sorts can actually, you can raise money with that. So I
Yeah.
think that really pushed me personally to, like, undertake these challenges. And I'm sure it does the same for the audiences as well. I think, Mr. Gordon, that we formally spoke about sustainability in the maritime industry, right? And sustainability is often discussed in environmental or operational terms, but not, always from a human perspective. So I want to really know that, what does human sustainability mean to you?
Yeah, so sustainability, especially in the maritime, if you're catching
Mm-hmm.
things from magazines that you read or a
Mm-hmm.
lot of the social media or the conferences that go on, it's always the big ticket items like we should all be autonomous, then nobody has to go on a ship again. We
Mm-hmm.
don't like diesel, marine oil, fuel, so we'll all go with alternative fuels, or we're all run by sails, which of course we did
Mm-hmm.
centuries ago. Anyway, so yeah, it's always those big items, isn't it? But really, I think if you look at the core of sustainability and a lot of the within the 17 Sustainable Development Goals by the United Nations, is we can all play our part in that from a human-centric level. So when they talk about inclusion, when they talk about equity, when they talk about fair pay or contracts, when they talk about, the globalization, and the maritime is already there because, like I've mentioned before, there could be multiple nationalities on a ship. We were already globalized and used to that. But what I think would help a lot more is not only kind leadership, which I propose, and what the people on the ship are doing, but also the corporates and the ship managers and the fleet operations. All those people and processes can play their part in sustainability. And if you're abusing the crew, whether it's through fatigue and hours of work, if it's about abusing seafarers through contracts or the quality of food they get, if it's that you're abusing seafarers because you're not even paying them the salary or they're being
Mm-hmm.
abandoned, I mean, it just breaks my soul every time I see on social media another ship has been abandoned, the crew are left there, they have to stay on board to ensure that from a legal perspective that they actually get recompense, like even their salaries, not compensation for having been abandoned halfway around the world, but they actually get the salary that are owed. Some of them for months and months on end haven't been paid, and not least a flight to get back home. Because when you're abandoned, it is literally they walk away, and then you're in the hands of the port authority or the charities that help them. So I think we could all consider
Mhm.
sustainability in our
Mhm.
practices and what we do as a maritime. So I know that there are rules, regulations, and procedures, and flag states try to eliminate the bad operators and the bad
Mhm.
people from our industry. But like every
Mhm.
other industry around the world, and some geographical areas are going to be worse than others,
Right.
but it is the case that there are bad people around, and that's a stain on the maritime, and it's where most of our efforts and expenses are going
Mhm.
to try and correct that, where it need not. So that, in a perfect world, if everyone was treated with respect, got a good contract, had a decent salary, was actually paid that salary so that they could look after their families and were treated well, and the vessels were well maintained, and let's talk about training, that the seafarers actually got training, got advancement, so that they had a
Mhm.
purpose in life as well, then the world would be a far better place. But
Yeah.
unfortunately, that's not always the case. And that is a big
Absolutely.
issue of sustainability, because if the world is
Mhm.
connected, and allegedly 95% of all world trade comes
Mhm.
via the sea in the form of our ships or on the ocean, and just the communications that we're using now with the internet, people think it all comes from satellites or this magical Wi-Fi thing. It actually
Mhm.
comes from submarine telecom cables that are laid on the seabed. So all these operations and all these ship and maritime based, whether it's construction or cargo or even leisure, like the cruise industry, it needs to be sustainable. And I think it's always comes down to it's only going to be sustainable on reflection of how you treat the people. And it's not
Absolutely.
necessarily just the seafarers on the ship, it's the support people as well in the ports and the harbors, the logistics, whatever it is, an enterprise that you're in.
Mhm.
If you treat it as a corporate and an enterprise, and neglect the seafarer and believe that the seafarer is just a commodity
Mhm.
that can be burned, then it's never going to work. So yeah,
Absolutely. I believe.
some of those sustainable development goals
Mhm.
affect people, and
Mhm.
definitely how we interact and how those people affect each other.
Absolutely. And I do believe it's a collective effort. We all have to have some sort of contribution in making sure that the human element is not lost in translation of conversations that we, have.
We
And I
do,
think more than provisions. Mhm.
I was going to say some
Please.
people like myself have a privileged voice where people, for some unknown
Mhm.
reason, wish to hear what I say or look at my social media
Absolutely.
posts. So I don't
Hmm.
ever sit on the fence. I usually tell it as it is, the good and the bad and the ugly.
Hmm. Hmm.
But yeah, quite rightly, we all have our part to play in that.
Absolutely. And we are not living in an ideal world where only provisions might not work. So sometimes training is also required. And I think you have personally undertaken, with MLA College, the MBA course. What motivated you to take up this course? Was it the leadership experience that you were seeking from this? And how has your journey been with us?
You're not going to believe this, but this was part of giving back and paying it forward as well. I
Mm-hmm.
did a Met Ocean qualification way back in the day when MLA College was a small operation with I think only about 3 people working there, and
Uh-huh.
thankfully it's grown into a much larger enterprise now, and reached globally to be able
Yeah.
to provide learning opportunities for people, which is excellent. But back then it was very small, and I did that
Mm-hmm.
training course and thought it was really wonderful. I thought it was just going to be a
Mm-hmm.
short course, but it took me about three or 4 months to actually complete in the end. And I did some academic work and master's degrees with the
Mm-hmm.
emphasis on human-centric account of seafarers, the lived experience, basically, and did some academic work, which I hoped moved on to policymakers and that, which would look at
Mm-hmm.
my work and look at risk and security in complex environments. Because I worked in the Gulf of Guinea, and I
Mm-hmm.
worked in Africa quite a lot, so I was writing
Mm-hmm.
about that from a Western guy sort of perspective of how we could make things better. And when it came to then thinking again a couple of years later when they introduced the MBA in maritime operations, I thought I would undertake that, and I went to see the rector and I said, actually, I already know what I wish to research. I hope you're aligned with that. I also would like to do
Mm-hmm.
it this
Mm-hmm.
way, and I hope you're aligned with that. And the MLA said, yes, fantastic. This is what we need. We need practitioner research. We would love to have more of that practitioner research that's from the lived
Mm-hmm.
experience. And if it's paying it forward or making the maritime better, this is what MLA College is all about. So that started my journey. I think on the application late in 21, 22, I started the process and finished in 2023. And what I used that research for was not because I needed it on my CV or I needed it
Mm-hmm.
as the hierarchy for the next promotion. I
Mm-hmm.
didn't. I did it because it allowed me to research on a topic of interest that I had, which were the issues and challenges of the day. And I believe the title from memory was something like
Mm-hmm.
um, leadership in the maritime, the future professional mariner, and I wrote my research all about the competency and the training pipeline and cycle of the younger mariners. So it was quite UK centric, and it involved how UK cadets join the merchant navy. But I also wanted to widen it to the blue economy because I didn't go through a cadetship. I came from the Royal Navy, and I work in the offshore industry, which is on the project side of engineering, as opposed to, for instance, a bridge watchkeeper or an engine room officer. So I wanted to encompass the whole blue economy to show that competency and training and the learning needed to be there for the whole blue economy because it was so interrelated. Whether you had a degree in oceanography or hydrographic survey, or whether you were a purist engineer, they all intertwined. There's also a lot of other ancillary disciplines that come in, especially from the environmental side, like marine mammal mitigation, passive acoustic monitoring. All these part of the maritime, the modern maritime, and of course the hot subject of mass or autonomy and how we can utilize autonomous surface vessels in much the same way as we can utilize autonomous underwater vessels to understand our environment better, to protect the marine environment, and where we are interacting as humans with the marine environment in the
Mm-hmm.
form of pile driving foundations or wind turbines offshore, that we do it in a respectful way, but also in a monitored way so that we can prove that we're not adversely affecting the environment. And that forces companies then to think about their methodology and their procedures, how they go about their business in the maritime to make it
Mm-hmm.
a cleaner, more sustainable maritime. So
Right.
yeah, that's why I did it. And my whole research then
Mm-hmm.
encompassed around the training of
Mm-hmm.
juniors now, so that the pipeline would be long enough. So in the future,
Mm-hmm.
that people would have training that was relevant, topical, technically relevant, and in some ways future-proofed, because we were still and still are training some
Mm-hmm.
old-fashioned ways. And what we should be doing is put a much bigger emphasis, I believe, on training the juniors now in the future technologies so that it's not a big shock to them when they come to it, or they're expected to bolt that on when they're mid-career. So yeah, and I
Absolutely.
do hope that the policies, or those that make the policies within training pipelines, then looked at
Mm-hmm.
competency, looked at what the future will be bringing in the form of mass
Mm-hmm.
autonomy,
Mm-hmm.
integrated logistics, and that, and making sure that people are trained to that level as a
Mm-hmm.
forethought rather than an afterthought.
Right. And I think we've got, quite a few questions about what should people do. So, with regards to reading more and, kind of educational certificates that they should pursue. So, looking back on your journey, first of all, I would like to ask you, what is the kind of key message that you would like to give the future maritime professionals and leaders? And second, what's the hope for the next generation in the maritime industry?
Brilliant. Let's finish off with a good few questions. So, yeah, my catchphrase, with inspiring the maritime is
Mhm,
always dream big.
mhm,
Never let anyone tell you you can't do that or you can't be this. My granddaughter, especially, she wrote a letter all about kindness because it was something to do with the school and how to be
mhm,
kind and respectful to other people. And I said, "Oh, you're writing quite a lot there." How come you've done
Mhm.
a couple of pages? He said, well, this is my speech. I'm going to read this out when I am Prime Minister. And I thought, that's how everyone should think about it in life. So as a 7-year
Mhm.
old, you can think like that, you
Wow.
know, but you also have to not only have the passion and the motivation and wish to dream
Mhm.
big, you also have to be, I believe, respectful in the way that you go about it. Nobody owes you a
Sure.
living. Nobody's going to give you a degree. Nobody's going to
Mhm.
teach or train you unless you wish to be taught and trained.
Mhm.
So go there with the right frame of mind. Some things that I talk about when I'm talking about the challenging childhood I had and how I reached forward, and that was a
Mhm.
concept of looking in the mirror in the morning. Um, I look in the mirror in the morning and think, have I done well? Did I do well yesterday? How can I be better tomorrow?
Mhm.
And it's like a self check, a bit of reflection first thing in the day,
Absolutely.
and think, yeah, who can I help today? How can I be a kinder person today? And I think that goes a long way. So, in the modern rush of technology and everyone wants something yesterday, there's always
Mhm.
that place where you should consider to be humble because people
Absolutely.
will assist you, they will help you, they will mentor you, but only if you're a kind person or if you have a
Mhm.
nice personality, if you ask
Mhm.
nicely, and of course, if you then go on to pay it forward or share your
Mhm.
knowledge. So I never mind
Brilliant.
mentoring, sharing my knowledge, experience, and helping
Mhm.
other people and taking calls and DMs and WhatsApp and LinkedIn message all the
Mhm.
time. But that's because
Great.
people did it for me in the past. So I think if people
Mhm.
move forward in their journey in life, thinking, I'm not going to grab all the time, it's not me,
Mhm.
me, me. If I can also share what I have as well, then it makes for a much better world.
Thank you so much for sharing your journey. And, my takeaway from this webinar would be about being kind and, doing whatever possible at your individual level, whatever you can. So I think you've really inspired me. And I think many more people who have attended this session today. I would also like to briefly cover, about MLA College that we are, doing an intake that is going to start on 25th of May. So people, if you are interested in that, please feel free to reach out to us. And we've currently got a global impact scholarship running that is there for specific regions. So if you're someone who wants to pursue education and you're struggling financially or you're not able to commit dedicated hours, we are here to help you and we are able to take this conversation forward. Also, on that note, I also want to have quickly ask everyone to visit our social media pages. Just like this webinar, we continuously do these webinars where we've got people like Mr. Gordon himself and speakers who are seasoned professionals within these industries. So whatever you can take away from there, we would be we would love to help you in any way possible. Thank you so much, Mr. Gordon, for taking out the time today and attending this session with us.
Thank you so much, Deisha, and especially thank you to all the people that took the time out in their very busy day to view
Absolutely.
in or to listen in, or at a later
Mhm,
time listen to the recording. I hope it's been of
mhm,
some benefit to you, and I
mhm.
hope you step forward on your journey in the maritime with MLA College with a bit of humbleness, being kind to other people, and yeah, and you can have a crazy career like me, but you don't have to climb a mountain. Just take one step at a time.
Personally, I'm gonna bake a cake. That seems more possible for
That
me at the moment.
That and that's a good way of doing it because we all love food, don't we? So
Absolutely.
do a cake
Yes,
bake or a promotion and help a charity along
100%.
the way.
Absolutely. And just before, as a parting note, I would like to ask everyone that, if please do keep our, your questions going, and you can reach out to us via email, and we will be more than happy to take these questions and get back to you with an answer. Thank you so much. Have a good one, everyone. Bye.
Thank you, everybody. Goodbye.